G'day YouTube, Max right here, and we got an epic video for you today. We have video proof smoking gun evidence of election fraud in Georgia, and not just that, by more than enough to create the real result. I don't want to say turn the result, to justify the real result of that of the electoral college votes in Georgia being given to Donald Trump. You're going to see that right here in this video. So as we go, I would love to hear from you guys. From how many of you is this the first place you've seen this? I'm just fascinated to understand the flow of information and how big tech and mainstream media are suppressing this. I really want to know about that. So let me know if this is the first place you've heard about this. So this came about in Georgia. Yesterday there was a hearing, and Rudy Giuliani's team was there, and it's the type of thing that should be televised on every major network. And then this lady got up and provided video evidence that you're about to see. Now, I'm going to post a link to her direct testimony. It goes for about 17 minutes, and I highly, highly recommend you watch it. I consider it every single person on the planet's duty to watch this, to understand, and especially if you're in America, your patriotic duty is to watch this and understand what's happening. That'll be the link in the description. It's a 40-minute video, but I'll timestamp it for you. It starts at about 10 minutes 30, goes for about 17 minutes. Highly recommend you watch it. For this video, I'm going to give you the abridged version. This little clip off of some mainstream media, I think a little local news channel. We'll check out what it is. Go ahead and let's watch this. I'll come back and explain more.
They are going to pull ballots out from underneath a table.
For the first time, the president's legal team, led by Rudy Giuliani, presented surveillance video from State Farm Arena, which allegedly shows people taking out at least 4 boxes of ballots from underneath a table and then counting them after hours with no election supervisors present.
So the same person who's staying behind now, the same person who cleared the place out under the pretense that we're going to stop counting, is the person who put the table there at 8:22 in the morning. Yeah, I saw 4 suitcases come out from underneath the table.
It is believed that each box consisted of 6,000 ballots. If accurate, that would amount to about 24,000 potential votes.
Actually, I'll stop it here. And what I want to draw your attention to is this guy here. Now, ballots come in boxes, right? I think this could be some of them over here. It's the traditional way they come. This is a suitcase. Notice this guy. It's like the kind you would get on when you get on a plane, right? It's got the extendable hand. It's a wheel. It's like when you walk up to the luggage carriage at an airport. Okay, so watch him wheel the ballots over.
If accurate, that would amount to about 24,000 potential votes.
Okay, so that's a little highlight clip. Let me give you the bigger picture of what the 17-minute testimony and video evidence shows. What it shows is that 8 o'clock in the morning, November 3rd, I think it's about 8:30 a.m., this table is set up by an African-American woman with blonde braided hair who we see later on in the footage. But she sets up this table. Now, from what the testimony kind of gathered, I believe this video evidence was just provided, meaning they hadn't had a chance to fully go through it. They found some key bits of information about it, and they shared that during this testimony. What they have is the woman setting up the table at 8:30 in the morning and the tablecloth over the top of it, and you can't see underneath it. They've got the footage of 14 consecutive hours of that table, and sometime later in the night, we'll get to specifically when, they wheel out these 4 suitcases full of ballots. What they did not show during the testimony is when the suitcases were put in there, but we definitely have the footage. My prediction is that it will show those suitcases full of ballots being put in early in the morning. What I predict is happening is a whole bunch of people setting up everything setting up tabulation machines and chairs and things and setting up for the day. They'll say, okay, people, we're all set up. Everybody get out of the room now. And these suitcases come in with just 1 or 2 people being aware that they're being stashed there. Okay. But we haven't seen the moment these suitcases are put in there. So we just don't know the timestamp of when that has happened. Okay. Next, what we see, fast forwarding later in the hour, we've got what's it called? Affidavit evidence. So this is sworn under the penalty of perjury. There are several affidavits of there. So once the tabulation starts, Georgia state law says there has to be observers from both teams and all the things that have to happen, right? Now, at about 10:30, the election is going so poorly for the Democrats. It's like, okay, we got to use the ballots that we put under the thing. So here's what they do. They say, okay, guys, we are stopping counting. Everybody go home. So there was a Fox News crew there, just set up behind the yellow line, just filming the whole thing all day. They pack up and go. There was 2 Republican observers. They pack up and go. The vast majority of counters, they pack up and go. Remember, there was scores of counters there all day, counting, tabulating. That's important. They all leave because they were told that we're going to stop counting because it's illegal to count without observers from both parties. That's Georgia state law. They sent everyone home saying we're going to stop counting. But this footage doesn't stop, and nor do they. They, as soon as they're out of the room, as soon as the room is cleared, they walk over to the table, lift up the tablecloth, pull out the suitcases, wheel them over to, and 4 people stay and keep counting, right? And they're just grabbing, we won't see that in the footage, but I'm presuming what's happened is they're grabbing these ballots, putting them through the tabulation machine, or whatever it is they're doing to count there. So there's 4 people there counting, and then there's another 2 people kind of milling around who come and go. So there's a total of 6, I'm going to call them co-conspirators at this point, right? And they continue counting after all the supervision has been sent home, all right? And I want just a little bit of context here. Never in the history of the country has counting stopped in the middle of election night. It's never happened. Like election after election after election, they don't stop counting. You just keep counting until you have a result, right? We know that. And this particular state, along with several others, have a coordinated blow the whistle, let's all stop counting. And we've got the smoking gun evidence of what happened when they sent everybody home and they stopped counting right here in this video footage. All right. Now I'll draw your attention to this. Well, first of all, I want to show this. You'll recall, I believe the figure was 24,000. The estimations of how fast the tabulation machines can work and how big the suitcases are and everything else, all the evidence suggests that there was about 24,000 votes brought out in those suitcases. Now, let's just take a look at the Georgia election results right here. And we'll see in Georgia that currently Biden has won by 13,000 votes. Okay, but there's 24,000 votes that magically appear. Okay. Let's come back to this particular piece. So this is a graph of, as all the counties come in, it all gets recorded, a bit time-stamped, and as the counties start reporting, okay? However, if you click on any particular, let's call them a candlestick, of where the information comes on, that you'll see at 1:20, we have this massive blue spike, vast majority Biden. All right. Now that could be the sum of several hours of work plus the faulty the bogus ballots. Okay, but this anomalous thing comes in here at 1:20. Now to further understand what happened at 10:30, everybody gets sent home, except for these 4 to 6 people who stay around counting the bogus ballots, the co-conspirators. Okay, the people. And this is the video in the counting room, but there's an arena here, and so there's security and whatever else. So there's other people around. As per the affidavit, the Republicans who got sent home, the Republican watchers who were sent home, they're getting text messages or phone calls saying they haven't stopped counting, they're still counting. So they come back at about 1:30, and they actually have to force their way past the security downstairs, and they get back into the room, and they show that footage of them coming back into the room later in the day at about 1:30. And you can see here from the timestamp, this fraudulent information is delivered at 1:20 to the overall voting system where the media gets it and everyone can track it and count the votes. And this is where it flipped. So, I mean, just the brazenness is really quite incredible. And the stupidity to do it under video surveillance but they were forced into this position. That's what you have to understand. I think we got many, many weeks of fully understanding everything that happened. But I think what they did was they cheated lots of different ways. And they cheated some ways, like with the Dominion voting system, and other ways which were going to go, it's a lot harder to detect. And they had their best guess at what they needed to win and win comfortably. Unfortunately, they delude themselves with fortunately for us, they delude themselves with their own bogus polls, and they massively underestimated the size by which Trump was going to win. But they had this insurance policy. They had an insurance policy of suitcases full of ballots that if they needed them, they could bring them out and count them. But in order to do that, they had to send everyone home, bring out this thing. It's like, where are those suitcases of ballots? Where are these coming from? They had to get everybody out of the room and let this be seen. So this is just an absolutely fascinating smoking gun development. And I got a lot more to say to this, but I want I want to share with you a couple of quotes here from one of my favorite movies. If you haven't seen this movie, go and watch it right now. Oliver Stone's JFK quote. Oliver Stone's JFK. And I want you to replace, I'm going to replace President can be assassinated in this quote with a presidential election being stolen. This was delivered by Kevin Costner as prosecutor attorney Jim Garrison. What is the future of a democracy where a presidential election can be stolen under conspicuously suspicious circumstances where the machinery of legal action scarcely trembles? I want you to think about that. So this is the part that's really, really exciting for me. None of this is election fraud, whatever. I've known about it for years. We've got video evidence of it. This is fantastic. It's huge. And it's going to cause some very good things, which I'll anticipate and predict here in just a minute. But what's amazing for me is for the normies. The normies are people who just watch CNN and MSNBC and can't think for themselves, quite frankly. They can't. It's the vast majority of society. It's okay. It is what it is. When they see Attorney General from the Department of Justice, say a day or two ago, after 1,000+ affidavits come in alleging voter fraud, to say that there's no evidence of a voter fraud. That's what he said. Actually, he used very artfully vague language, which is what their experts are doing. He said there's no evidence of voter fraud in sufficient quantities to change the election. That's what he said. So it gives him an out. He says, well, okay, there was a voter fraud. Here's a question. You're the Attorney General, and you've taken no steps. The machinery of legal action scarcely trembles. You basically, in your sentence, you agree there's voter fraud, just not enough to overchange the election. Well, tell me this, isn't any kind of a voter fraud illegal? Isn't it your job as Attorney General to use your subpoena power to go out and investigate? Remember, the Trump campaign can't issue subpoenas. They can't call witnesses and force them to testify. They can't confiscate information. They can't go, I don't know how they got this footage, a whistleblower maybe, I don't know. But they don't have subpoena power. They can't go and just start questioning people and force people to answer. They can't go and use warrants to confiscate boxes of ballots and store the evidence. They can't do that. The Department of Justice can. And there's the similar things at the state levels. The evidence is all around, but the machinery of legal action scarcely trembles. And it's left to the Trump campaign in a civil suit to do what it can to fix things. But they don't have subpoena power. They don't have the power of warrant. They can't just go and grab the evidence when it's sitting there in absolute abundance. And that, to me, as the normies figure this out, this is just an avalanche. And the fact that Trump won by such a landslide is kind of evidence that a lot of normies have figured this out. And this last, we're going to see the last kind of 20, 30%. We're never going to get to 100%. So the people who have basically, anyone who doesn't get it at the end of this process could take weeks, months. But at the end of this process, there's going to be so much evidence out there. Anyone who is still clinging to it, let me tell you what that means. It's a psychological thing. They have committed so many acts of evil. Could be all kinds of things. Could be voter fraud. Could be big things like that. Could be things like stealing yard signs from other Trump supporters. Could be things like keying cars who had Trump stickers. Could be things like not being friends with someone who has been really good to them their whole life, but then they disown them and don't talk to them anymore because they're a Trump voter. All of these little acts of violence, little acts of evil, they're all things that have been done on the belief that they were doing something for the greater good, which is getting evil man Trump out of office. And so they committed all these acts of evil along the way. If they were to concede that actually Trump's not the evil, it's the Democrats, it's the Biden, it's the establishment, it's half of the Republican Party. If they were to concede that those things are evil, now they have to concede to themselves that all those little acts of violence that they committed were just pure evil. And your subconscious doesn't work that way. The mental gymnastics to push back on watching evidence as black and white as this is really quite remarkable to watch. I've been watching it for decades. It's very, very interesting. And after all the shit comes out, and there'll be way more that comes out of this, we won't get past 70% of the population. 30% of the population will still contend that Biden's the true winner and Trump was illegal, even after way more evidence than what you're about to see. And all that means is they're evil. They committed acts of evil, and their subconscious is clinging desperately to the fact that they're not evil because they were doing it for the greater good. That's all that means. So heads up on that. Let's go to another amazing quote in Oliver Stone's JFK. This one is given by X, who was played by Donald Sutherland. And it's helping me make a prediction about what's happening. So, make arrests, stir the shitstorm. Hope to reach a critical mass that'll start a chain reaction of people coming forward. Then the government will crack. Remember, fundamentally, people are suckers for the truth. And the truth is on your side, Bubba. I just hope you get a break. And I want to come back to that chain reaction. So this kind of evidence is black and white, smoking gun, and there's all the evidence to go and arrest this girl. And by the way, we figured out who this girl is. It's an African-American woman, long blonde hair. Her mother's name's Ruby. She was the head coordinator there. Very, very easy to find her. We found her already, and we can name her. But she's up shit creek, big time. Big time. Like, she can't not go to jail. So now the chain reaction starts to happen. Well, is she going to cut a deal? Because I'm pretty confident. I mean, remember, this was coordinated and systematic. Mostly, we haven't got the video footage in other states, but it happened. We know it happened. This was coordinated and planned in multiple states. She's getting her instructions from people higher up the food chain. Is she going to cut a deal to tell us who's giving her the instructions, where she's got the ballot from, all the evidence to get what deal is she going to cut? Now, here's the advice I would give to her if she was my friend. Run. Don't walk. Run to your nearest video camera and get yourself on camera and confess your crimes. Go under penalty of perjury. Write the affidavit. Do it all and get your evidence out there. Because here's why, sweetheart. You are expendable. You're not part of the crime family. You're not part of the crime family. You're not a higher up. You're nothing. You are an expendable foot soldier. And you, girlfriend, are in big trouble. See, before you testify, it'll look really, really, really suspicious. Or if you were killed, or suicided, there's 50 different ways to suicide. You make it look like you committed suicide. They got 50 different ways to do it. It would look really, really suspicious if that happened before you testified. And the cost of that suspicious look is so much less than the cost of if they let you testify and get on the record and name names. Once you get on the record and name names, now the cost of murdering you is not so high. The cost of suiciding you, it's too high because they can't take back the evidence you've provided under penalty of perjury. It's done. If I were you, girl, I would run. I think you're going to be killed or suicided here very, very fast. I would run to get under police protection. I wouldn't go to your state. I wouldn't go in your county. I wouldn't do any of that. I'm sure the police are on the take there too, and part of this, and are co-conspirators to all of this. I would get yourself to the Trump team. I would jump on YouTube immediately, and I would be live streaming myself, running, telling the story, confessing your sins, and running to try and get protection from, I don't know who I'd go. I think I'd go to the Trump team. I think I'd go to the Trump team. I don't think I'd go to the FBI. I don't think I'd go to your state police. I wouldn't do any of that. I'd go to the Trump team. That's what I highly recommend for you. You are in a world of hurt. You are a very, very, very expendable foot soldier. And you got caught cold. So you're in trouble. You're in big, big trouble. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Here's a specific question I want to ask you all. There's several different burdens of proof. I believe to overturn the election or to correct this, the burden is balance of evidence, meaning it's just 50-50. That's what's it called, the burden of preponderance or something like that. I forget the exact term. But it means if you're like 51% sure that that fraud took place, and 49% unsure that maybe it didn't, but then that's the burden in the court case. I believe that's the standard that the Trump legal team needs to hit. In order to prosecute people and put people in jail, now you have to be beyond a reasonable doubt. That's something in the order of 98, 99% sure that what you saw was election fraud. Now, again, this is brand new, fresh information. There's a lot more evidence to come. Hopefully she'll be offered a deal and she'll roll over, confess her own crimes, and let us know who was above coordinating this multi-state steal. So hopefully there's a lot more evidence to come. But right now, as it stands, I'm fascinated to hear from you. Do you think nothing to see here? This is complete nonsense, easily explained. Do you think that the burden of the preponderance of evidence suggests that there was election fraud? Or do you believe that it's beyond a reasonable doubt, in the state of Georgia at least, that Trump won the Electoral College votes that belong to Georgia? Let me know in the comments below. The arc of this story to me is just fascinating. We got a woman at 10:30 asking everybody to leave in an unprecedented move that's never happened before in the history of elections on election night, except for this election that happened in 3 different states simultaneously. Asked everyone to leave, they're going to stop counting that day. Then they keep on counting. There's no doubt about that. We've got video evidence of that. And then they idiots deliver the results. They say they're going to stop counting, and then they deliver the results 4 hours later of the ballots they counted. Truly ridiculous. They did that in all the states. Then during this period when everyone's gone, these suitcases, not ballot boxes, suitcases full of ballots are pulled out from under a tablecloth, and presented to the 4 co-conspirators who stay around and count and put them through the tabulation machines. And then things are uploaded and released, and the information made public just before the Republican watchers come back and see. So, yeah, I don't know. How can you possibly, after seeing that, not fathom that and not believe that election fraud took place, at least in the state of Georgia? But then if it happened there, and we've got the similar kind of spikes, like these kinds of spikes, like we've got similar kind of anomalies that happen at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. in the different swing states, and it's similar affidavits telling the same story. We just don't have the video evidence of it in the other states. How can you not have at least the preponderance of evidence suggests that Trump won in a landslide? You add that to the fact that the down ticket people, it was an overwhelming victory for Republicans. Republicans won the House. They improved in the House. They made up ground in the Senate. Everything is just looking absolutely incredible in terms of votes. Sorry, not in terms of seats in the Senate, but the margins of victory were bigger than previous years in most of the Senate states, most of the Senate races. I should qualify that. So guys, yeah, this is just absolutely cataclysmic. Let me know, did you hear it here first? And what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. I can't wait to hear. Please like, share, subscribe this video, and I'll see you guys soon.